Hi, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to the World Boxing Review radio show. My name is Aaron Snowell. They call me the Hall of Fame trainer of champions. I would travel the world for past, present, and future stars. In coming to you live from Pennsylvania, I'm down here in Tampa, Florida, but we have Bill Dettloff, man. Welcome into the World Boxing Review. How you
Thanks,
doing,
Aaron.
Bill?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. For
Good.
people who don't know Bill, fans that are out there, a lot of you know him because he's written a lot of books. He's a writer. He wrote for HBO, ESPN, uh, and especially Ring Magazine. He wrote for a long time. And our dear friend, the editor in chief at that time, way back when I met. Collins. Yeah, boy, it's a deep pleasure to have you on the show. Nigel been on the show many times, and it's a pleasure to have you on here, man.
Thanks,
Welcome
Aaron.
into the show.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, there's something big going on in down in Philadelphia tonight. Just to catch up on some boxing news, you have Boots Ennis. Boy, he's getting ready to defend his title down there at Wells Fargo, right?
He is, and Boots has the potential and all the tools, apparently, to be boxing's one of boxing's next stars, and certainly the biggest name out of Philadelphia right now.
Oh
Excellent
yes,
fighter.
yeah. Up at the Fighters Heaven, formerly Muhammad Ali's camp. Every year we do the Black History Month celebration up there, and he came up there, him and his father, and we had a great time, great cookout. So, man, he's getting around. He's doing a great media tour, trying to get those big fights. And I hope tonight for down there in Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center tonight is that he makes a blast and the people pack in there. I think they're going to get 16,000 strong down there to watch this young man do his thing in front of his hometown crowd.
They may. Again, he's a very hot name in boxing right now, and a sure shot future title holder, if not undisputed champion. So I'd imagine they'll do well also at the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Eddie Hearns, who has Anthony Joshua, he has a long time deal with the Zone. He said he likes him. He's taking the risks, and it's going to be free too. So people that can't make it down to Philadelphia on the Zone tonight, you could see him do his thing live from the Wells Fargo Center, man. And thank you, Eddie Hearns, man, for coming into Pennsylvania and Philadelphia to do your thing and bring something exciting like that to the state. Eddie Hearns, as well know, he's has Anthony Joshua, who's now in September fighting for the IBF title.
Yes.
Yeah. But hey, look, let's get back into you because you're our guest for today, and you're a well-noted boxing guy. Bill, talk a little bit about you being an author and some of the books that you wrote, like the one on SAAD Muhammad.
Sure. Well, to start at the beginning, I wrote an instructional book with Joe Frazier some years ago, working with Joe and Marvis Frazier out of their gym in Philadelphia, of course, out of Joe Frazier's gym, which sadly is no longer there, of course, as you probably know, Aaron. But we wrote Box Like the Pros together. And then sometime after that, several years after that, I wrote the only biography that exists of former heavyweight champion Ezzard Charles. And most recently, as you just said, my biography of Matthew SAAD Muhammad, the wonderful light heavyweight title holder from the 1980s. And interestingly, today, Aaron, is the anniversary of Matthew SAAD Muhammad's second fight with Yaki Lopez.
Wow, that was a dynamite fight.
It sure was. That's I think that's the most commonly associated fight with Matthew SAAD Muhammad from fans of that era. They think of that fight because, of course, Yaki Lopez was a wonderful light heavyweight himself and probably would have been a champion or title holder in any other era, but had the great misfortune of competing at the same time as Matthew SAAD Muhammad and Michael Spinks and Victor Galindez. and all the other great light heavyweights of that era. But again, today is the anniversary of their second fight, which is generally regarded as the better of the two in terms of excitement, because there came a stretch late in the fight when Yaki had Matthew, and I'm sure you remember this, Aaron.
Yeah.
Yaki had Matthew on the ropes, and for a solid minute, just hit him with everything he had. And certainly, I would guess today, if that happened, the fight would have been stopped. But the referee knew Matthew SAAD Muhammad's capabilities and let him take all those shots and come back and hurt Lopez at the end of that same round. And then, which I believe was the 7th or 8th. And then Matthew, of course, came on to knock out Lopez in the 14th round of that fight. Again, today is the anniversary. That took place on July 13th, 1980.
Yeah, that was at the Playboy Club in McAfee, New Jersey, wasn't it?
I believe it was. It's interesting that for one of the most, if not the most exciting fighter of his era, and a title holder, and a respected one at that, many of Matt's fights took place in front of comparatively small crowds, 1,000 or 2 people. And of course, that he was being watched on free network television, ABC, I believe it was at the time, counterbalanced the exposure, right? He was getting a lot of exposure on TV, but he was one of the best fighters in the world and certainly the most exciting, but he was fighting in front of relatively small crowds in Atlantic City at the Playboy Club and at small venues like that, but just lighting up other fighters and doing a great job, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's when network TV was at its best when it came to fights.
Sure.
A great promoter named Rod Muhammad, along with, I believe it was Top Rank, they put that fight on up there in McAfee, New Jersey.
Yep.
And a longtime friend, a longtime manager, Mustafa Amin, with SAAD Muhammad, and he's helped keeping Matthew SAAD legacy alive because of, you know, his family background and his history. Talk
Sure.
a little bit about that, and that speaks to the character of SAAD Muhammad.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit what you wrote about his early life as being a young man.
Sure. If most people, if they have any familiarity with Matthew SAAD Muhammad, they know at least part of the story, and that part is that he was found as a very small child wandering around Philadelphia on the Ben Franklin Parkway, alone, lost, not knowing really, of course, where he was, but also who he was. He was a very small kid, and after several hours of being alone in this area, he was approached by a police officer and taken over to the station. And sadly, they couldn't find who was responsible for him, and ran a newspaper ad the next day in a Philadelphia newspaper with a picture of him, asking for anybody who knew him to identify him, and nobody responded. So he was taken in by the Catholic nuns over there in Philadelphia, and for a time lived in orphanages and with foster parents until he was adopted by a Portuguese family that lived in South Philly, and they became his parents. Now, some of the background that I discuss in my book, which a lot of people don't know, is that he came to be in that circumstance because he was living with his aunt, and who had enough problems getting by and living her life without all the extra kids that she had from her sister. And I'll get to that in a second. But at any rate, she told Matthew's older brother, who was older by several years, to take him out and don't come back with him, to lose him, essentially. So he did that. He went out, took Matt out, who was, again, about 4 years old. And then when he had him out far enough away from home that Matthew wouldn't know how to get back, he just ran away and left Matt out there to fend for himself. Now, the reason that occurred is because Matthew's biological mother was a really terrible alcoholic and had many children and couldn't care for them all. And so the children were split up among members of her family, her sisters mainly, and her parents. And she was still alive when this occurred later when Matt was found, of course. A lot of people think that the reason that he was placed with his aunt was because she died, because his mother died. And that's not the case. She was still alive when this occurred. And Matt went to live with his aunt. And that living with his aunt led to him being abandoned on the streets in Philadelphia there.
Yeah. And just not too long ago, some years ago, is that before he passed, he did hook up with his brother. He found out who his brother and stuff was.
Yeah, he did. He found his entire biological family, his sisters and brother also. In fact, they had a type of reunion on Good Morning America, that TV show in the morning. Matt, when he was champion, had the financial resources to really look into his past, of course, and of course it bothered him that he didn't know who his biological family was. So he hired a very prominent lawyer in Philadelphia, who also hired, who subsequently hired a private eye, and they found records that indicated that his family had the last name of Loach. And he was born in a hospital in Philadelphia that's no longer there. And they took there was a footprint from him as an infant, which seemed to match the footprint that he offered as an adult, of course. The results of that were inconclusive, but Matthew ended up interviewing all the people who claimed to be his biological family and was convinced that they were indeed, the Loach family was indeed his biological family. He had several sisters and Rodney, his brother. And again, they reunited and kept in touch for a while. But as is often the case with these types of things, the relationship wasn't as good as everyone had hoped it would be.
Yeah. Hey, look, it sounds like this book is going to be a good read, as you always do, Bill. You do extensive research before you put the pen and the pencil together. You line up the solid information on whoever you're writing about. That's what makes your book so good. And not only that, the book is a great read.
Thank you.
And The Miracle Man by Bill Dettloff. Let me tell you, it's a great read, boxing fans. And you'll find out a lot of detailed history, not only about Matthew SAAD Muhammad's life, but his boxing career. I mean, he was in a lot of magnificent fights like Marvin Johnson, right down there in Philadelphia with Russell Phelps. Talk a little bit about that, Bill.
Well, the first fight, I love to bring up this quote from our mutual friend, Nigel Collins. He said about the first fight, that it was the only fight he ever covered where he thought both guys might die in the ring, which is quite saying something, because that was the brutality of the fight. Matthew had a string of fights that were just insane because of his ability to take punishment and then recover and dish out the same in return. The Richie Cates fight early in his career was an example of that, right? Richie Cates was a wonderful light heavyweight from that era. Another one who probably would have been a champion in any other era. And Billy Douglas also.
Yes.
Douglas's father, as you know, was a very, very tough middleweight for most of his career. But then as he got older, became a light heavyweight, and he and Matthew fought. And that was another war where Matthew was floored and hurt very badly. And he came back to stop Douglas, a little controversially, but it was another example of one of those wars where he got hurt and came back. And then, of course, there were both Marvin Johnson fights, which were crazy because Marvin Johnson, people undersell him, and it's it's a constant pain, as an annoyance, maybe is a better word, that he's not in the International Boxing Hall of Fame, Marvin Johnson, because he was a wonderful fighter, bronze medalist in the Olympics, and a very good amateur. And then, of course, again, had the misfortune of fighting at the same time as Matthew Saad Muhammad, because he won a light heavyweight title, and then immediately lost it to Matthew Saad Muhammad. In their second fight, and then he won the title again and lost it in his first defense. So Marvin Johnson was a great fighter, and especially good pressure fighter, coming from the southpaw stance, who could just throw punches all night. And anybody who hasn't seen their first fight and their second fight also, which is when Matthew won the light heavyweight title, just go to YouTube and watch Marvin Johnson and Matthew Saad Muhammad go to war against each other. It's really one of the more unbelievable sights that one can see in boxing from that era. The amount of punishment that Matthew took in both those fights is just insane, and that he won those fights by knockout because he was able to withstand Marvin Johnson's punches it's really difficult to describe fully. So I encourage anybody who's interested in Matthew Saad Muhammad and his history to go to YouTube and put in both his fights with Marvin Johnson and the Richie Cates fight also, and both Yaki Lopez fights and his later fights, to see what kind of fighter Matthew Saad Muhammad was.
Hey, like we all the time used to say, I met Matthew Saad Muhammad at Muhammad Ali's camp at the time. Now the Fighters Heaven.
Right.
When he first came up there for the John Conte fight.
Yep.
Me and him became very close friends, and was friends and up to the day that he died. And you're talking about a gentleman and a scholar, someone, when a Hollywood script, the best one that can to describe Matthew Saad Muhammad is the movies Rocky. The Rocky films, where the bloodbath happens, and after all the drama in the fight, the knockdown, the get up, to endure certain things, he comes roaring back and knocks the guy out. Yep. Matthew Saad Muhammad, he had all the drama in his fight that one could ever imagine that could make fights exciting. Now, you talked about Marvin Johnson. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad became light heavyweight champion, who Saad Muhammad and Eddie Mustafa Muhammad and Muhammad Ali were terrific friends.
Sure.
Up there at the Fighters Heaven in Deer Lake, where Ali had all of them come up there, and a lot of them trained.
Yep.
And Ali would help them out and give them advice and things like that, how to train and improve, because everybody that was around and during that era became great in their own field in boxing.
Sure.
So, I'm telling the fans right now, you got to go out and buy this book, Matthew Saad Muhammad, The Miracle Man. Bill's done a great job in his research and checking all of these things out, man, to make sure that, there it is. That's it. And I see you have Marvin Johnson, a fight with Marvin Johnson on the cover, man. That's the self.
Actually, that looks like Marvin Johnson. And when I first saw the photo, I thought it was Marvin Johnson. But it's not Marvin Johnson. It's a guy whose name escapes me at this very moment, but I will tell you. It's David Lee Royster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks like Marvin Johnson, right?
It looks like Marvin Johnson. That's what I thought it was when I glanced at it.
Yep.
You know.
Sure does. It's David Lee Royster, a guy who ended up going the distance with Matthew Saad Muhammad in their fight, but was floored 6 or 7 times. He was floored many times, but ended up going the distance. Kind of an inconsistent light heavyweight from that period. But in that photo, sure, it could pass for Marvin Johnson. And
Matthew Saad Muhammad, he did make it into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, correct?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. It's interesting. Fighters who don't, or I shouldn't say fighters, fight fans of a certain age that came after Matthew Saad Muhammad's era, when they hear the stories like the ones we're sharing now about how exciting his fights were, they kind of equate that to maybe a guy like Arturo Gatti, right? As that's their guy who was more exciting, the people who are younger than us, right? But I don't want to. I should caution those folks, and this is not to denigrate Gaddy at all, but I should caution those folks to remember
Yeah.
that Matthew was a world class fighter, and made a number of defenses of the light heavyweight title, and again, not to denigrate Gotti, but was a much better fighter than Arturo Gatti was. The only thing they share in common, really, is that they both could absorb a tremendous amount of punishment and come back to win. They were also both bleeders, of course. Matthew bled a lot and was prone to cuts, especially later in his career. But Matthew Saad Muhammad was a special fighter, even separately from his ability to be in exciting fights.
Yeah, and not only that, Matthew Saad Muhammad was in terrific shape, terrific condition, in order for him to withdraw all of that. And plus, he was hungry. He just loved fighting. Matthew Saad Muhammad did, and that's what made him. So a lot of guys want to get in something for money, and no sooner they get a little bit of money, that's it. They're downhill. But he just loved to fight. He loved everything about it. He loved training. You know what I mean? He'd wake up early in the morning, do the road work, chop the wood, sit up, push up, all of that, things and the extra things that it takes in order to be champ. He was not only that, a terrific human being when it came to giving charity out and things like that and helping people out. Matter of fact, how I met Tim Witherspoon was because of Saad Muhammad.
Really? Tell me about that.
Yeah, Tim Witherspoon he didn't have, if none or but one, Matthew Saad Muhammad didn't have that many amateur fights himself. But
no, less than 30.
He'd bring him up to Ali's camp.
He brought Tim up
to spar. Yeah, okay. when he was young. Maybe 0-1, and that's how I met Tim Witherspoon, was because of Saad Muhammad at the Fighters Heaven now, but Muhammad Ali's training camp back then. It was something, all the talent that came through the Fighters Heaven. But
sure.
Let's get into this, Bill, because we want to go over your books before we get into some other things. This book on Ezzard Charles from Cincinnati, Ohio, man. Talk a little bit about that book.
Well, that was a real labor of love and the first biography I wrote. But Ezzard Charles was actually born in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and lived there for a time before, interestingly, he had a kind of a not entirely dissimilar upbringing from Matthew Saad Muhammad. His father abandoned he and his mother while they lived in Lawrenceville, Georgia, in dire circumstances. And when Ezzard was a small child, I forget the age exactly he was, but his mother brought him up to Cincinnati to be raised by her mother and her grandmother. And then her mother, or his mother, went on to live in New York and support herself. So Ezzard didn't know his father after that point, and was raised solely by his grandmother and great-grandmother in Cincinnati, and started boxing as a young kid. And it was evident from the start that he was a special talent. And he was an entirely different proposition when he started. He started at pro, after a very good amateur career, started fighting at middleweight and was just destroying guys. And then went up to light heavyweight, and based on my research, I called him the best light heavyweight who's ever lived, because he just tore through guys who nobody else wanted to fight. You're familiar with the term Black Murderer's Row from that period, I'm sure, Aaron. And these were guys who were really good, who nobody wanted to fight, and Ezzard just went through them like a knife through butter. So he was a great middleweight and light heavyweight, and didn't go to heavyweight until he couldn't get a shot at the light heavyweight title.
And Ezzard Charles is, for African American heavyweight champions, He's number 3 after Joe Louis.
I think you're right. I don't think
And then who beat him was Jersey Joe Walcott.
That's true.
To become number 4, the number 4 African American heavyweight champion. So it's Jack Johnson, Joe Louis, and Ezzard Charles, and then Jersey Joe Walcott. Man, what a group of legendary champions, and Ezzard Charles is right on in there. And we talked about Saad Muhammad and his community work. Ezzard Charles did a lot of community work up there in Cincinnati, Ohio, right?
Right. He sure did. And later in Chicago, too. He moved from Cincinnati to Chicago a little later in life. So, yeah, he did a lot for his community, as Matthew did, participated in charities, that kind of stuff. And probably like Matthew Saad Muhammad also gave a lot of money away, which is one of the reasons that fighters in general have a hard time holding on to their money after their careers are over, because they all know people who need money, and there are people who need money who know that they have money, right? So a lot of fighters end up giving a lot of money away to help people around them, and that's often the case, and it's why almost all of the time they end up having no money, right?
Well, a lot of times, from which we come from those humble beginnings.
Sure.
When you have and people come with different needs of them not having, since when you've been in those situations, you have love and compassion.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
you say, well, the extra is to help somebody anyway, so let me help them. So that's what a lot of fighters do.
Absolutely.
And then when they fall short, nobody else wants to help them.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Okay. And also, you have another book on learn how to box like a pro?
Yeah, that's Box Like the Pros, which I said earlier. I co-wrote with Joe Frazier. I think I guess it's around 20 years ago at this point, or around there. Yeah, that's when I went to Joe Frazier's gym and worked with him and Marvis, especially Marvis, on writing this book. And that was a great experience, especially going to book signings with Joe was especially enjoyable and interesting, because Joe was very entertaining during those periods. Interesting guy, Joe Frazier. And of course, a legend, right? And especially known for his mettle and his toughness. And I don't think it's out of the question to call his win over Muhammad Ali in March of 1971 in New York the best victory of any fighter who's ever lived, right? And that had to be, up at that point, the biggest fight that had ever occurred, one of the biggest sporting events that ever occurred, right? And still the most storied heavyweight title fight ever. And I can't even imagine what it must have been like to be Joe Frazier after winning that fight. Can you imagine, Aaron, how great it must have been to be Joe Frazier the day after that? Now, I recognize, by the way, that he was in the hospital after that, and he had a lot of problems.
Without a doubt, Joe Frazier was something special.
He sure was.
When it came in the helping, a lot of people don't know. They thought Joe and Ali were enemies. They weren't enemies. They just understood greatness. To be a gold medalist himself, Joe Frazier, and Ali, a gold medalist, they had that Olympic experience as being the best that you can be.
Yep.
And that's what people seen in the ring when it came up. When they talk about styles make fights, Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali is the classic matchup between boxer and puncher. When it comes to the science of the game of boxing, that's what made those fights of Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali such appealing to the average person. Style-wise, it's a great matchup. And I had the great pleasure to meet Joe Frazier at the Fighters Heaven now, which was Muhammad Ali's training camp. Ali had a day, and when he painted all awry, and Joe came up there, and here comes Joe. Marvis was there, his son, and they had Ali and Joe stand by the Joe Frazier rock that Ali had put in his training camp of Joe. What a classic moment to even to see, to witness, to be around him. And I can remember when I was young, you'd be in Philadelphia and going to Joe Frazier's gym. Joe all the time used to say, "Oh, that's Ali's guy. Let him alone. He all right."
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's what Joe, every time he would see it, yeah, that's Ali's guy. He all right. Let him go.
Yeah.
But back in those days, Ali went down to Joe Frazier's gym when he lived in Cherry Hill. And the pictures, you see Ali looking through the window, taunting Joe, taunting him. Yeah. But look, people, you got to go out and get this book. Learn how to box like a pro, I think, or something like a pro. Is that now all of these books online, like Bill? Pros, right.
Sure, they're all available through Amazon. Yes.
Tell them where they can find your books at.
Amazon.com, where you can get any book. They're all there. Amazon.com. Yep.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, you've been hearing me talk about the Fighter 7, which is a jewel. It's a historical land site in Pennsylvania. It was Muhammad Ali's training camp. Mike Madden purchased it and worked hard to fix it up exactly like it was. And believe you me, it's like that.
It's pristine,
you have wrote in your magazine about the Fighter 7 and all that. Talk a little bit about that Fighter 7, man, because it's a jewel. That's where I got started.
Okay, first let me show you the magazine that's out now, the Ringside Seat magazine. The cover there is a photo from Jeff Julian, who of course is intimately involved with Fighter 7. This is the new magazine. It's out now. You can get it at ringsideseatmag.com. And the feature about Fighter 7 is written by Nigel Collins, who again is our mutual friend and has been doing this for a very long time. And funny they were talking about Matthew Saad Muhammad as well, because in that feature that Nigel wrote, which is wonderful, by the way, there's a picture from 40 years ago of him and Matthew Saad Muhammad at what was then Muhammad Ali's Deer Lake training camp, and now is Fighter 7, has been rebranded Fighter 7. But anyway, in that magazine, we have a bunch of fighter posters from the 1970s, which comprises much of the magazine, this issue. And again, Nigel Collins' wonderful article about Fighter 7. Wow. So what happened was after Ali retired, the camp was bought by a couple different parties and repurposed to be different things. None of which really took off to be anything, in part because of the location. It's not like it's located centrally to any metropolis, really. And fell into a state of disrepair. Before Mike Madden, who was the son of the legendary football coach and broadcaster John Madden, talked about it, and Mike Madden ended up buying the place and sinking some money into it, and the place has been restored into its original state, with the fighters' cabins and the gym area. There's a ring in it, and the speed bag. Well, not the speed bag, I don't think, but a heavy bag. It's in the same spot that it was when Ali trained there. At Ali's cabin has been restored to its original state with a rope bed, which is what Ali slept on. Some other items are still there that are original. There's a water pump outside that the fighters used to get water, of course, and the kitchen is still the same. There's a bell that Ali rang every morning to get the fighters, his sparring partners, up to do road work. Fans of Muhammad Ali and fans of boxing in general should make it a point to, at some point during their lives, get out to Fighters Heaven. It's one of the places that every fight fan should visit. at some point during her life, because it's just, let me put it this way. My favorite spot in the whole place is in the locker room. And there's paneling in the locker room.
Yeah.
Where Ali scribbled with a pencil his weight while he was training for, I believe, the Holmes fight. I could be wrong about that, Aaron. You might know better than me. But he scribbled his weight and the date on which he had weighed himself on the wall there. And it's still there in pencil. And that's a lovely touch, I think. But the whole place is great. It's a nice little area. It's very rural. And again, if you want to see what Fighters Heaven looked like when Muhammad Ali was there training for all those fights later in his career from the mid-'70s on, then you really got to get out to Fighters Heaven. Yeah,
well, he started coming up there. The first time he trained up there was the Kwawi fight when he was just coming out of Ezzard. Ali did. And when he came,
fight. Oh, okay, the quarry fight, quarry fight. Okay,
yeah.
Right.
And when he came up there, my family was one of the first families to meet Muhammad Ali.
Nice.
And Gene Kilroy is from Schuylkill County, as it's called up there. He's from Monoy City up the road. And Gene Kilroy was the one who basically introduced Bernie Pollock, who was a mink farm, who had a store in Pottsville and Reading, Pennsylvania, but he was in the sports boxing. And he would bring guys, Kitten Haywood from Philadelphia. He was up there before Muhammad Ali trained.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And when what's come from Chicago, who was heavyweight champion, he was up there before Ali training. What's my name?
And, Ernie Terrell.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Ernie Terrell. Ernie Terrell was up there training too.
Okay, I didn't know
for
that.
a little spurt of time. But Schuylkill County in general, in that region, where the camp sits at in Deer Lake, Pennsylvania.
Interesting. Okay.
To give you a little background on boxing history, because coal was king up in that neighborhood.
Sure.
Where there was a lot of money floating around, old money, when the coal and people needed for the furnaces to heat their homes and all that. Sure. And the anthracite coal, what is from that region, was big. The NFL got started in the anthracite football league. The Pottsville Maroons were one of the first teams in the NFL that used to play college football at that time. That sits in the same county as the Fighters Haven. So there's a lot of sports history, and I'm from Pottsville, Pennsylvania, right down the road, and that's how I got my start in boxing, was because of the great Muhammad Ali's camp, now the Fighters Haven. Without a doubt, that Fighters Haven is it's a jewel, it's a landmark. A lot of fighters themselves, from Ike Williams, Kit Gavilan, Stanley Sadler, all of them greats from that era, or the era before Muhammad Ali, used to come to the camp, and Ali used to sit and listen to them tell stories about their fights, training, and sometimes guys that were there that fought one another, Ali would talk crap to them to get them round up. Well, you did this, you dirty, this and that. But all the time, Ali was training the wit and the grit and grabbing knowledge at every moment that he was around it. That's the kind of guy Ali was. He would grab something off you in a minute, and he'd take around and run with it. And next thing you know, he in the ring doing it or trying to pull it off, you know. But and plus, a lot of people don't realize is that Cherry Hill and all that Angelo Dundee is from Philadelphia. In this era, guys they think that maybe he was from Florida because of the gym in Florida, but South Philly, Angelo Dundee and Chris Dundee were Philadelphia.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're from South Philly.
Yep.
But
Yep. That's right.
yeah, yeah. So much great things, Bill. And thank you so much for putting forth you and Nigel the great effort to keep that legacy alive of Muhammad Ali's camp. So many great fighters been through there. So many great people. So many great entertainers like Michael Jackson. When he was there, the Jackson
Really?
Five, they were there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Back in
Beatles.
that era, Tom Jones. Man, the list is
Sure.
long. Fine. The Whispers. The
Sure.
list is long, fine, but distinguished. But to have you guys up there at this stage of the game, still writing intensively, still thing is a credit to how much you love the sport of boxing. Number one, and to look at what Muhammad Ali was to the game and how y'all continue to inspire people to take on and look at that legacy in hopes that it inspire you like it inspired me when I was young.
Right.
Um,
Right.
that you could do anything, you can climb any mountain, ain't no mountain high enough and ain't no valley low enough to keep you from being successful.
That's
And
right.
that magazine, now tell me again where the people and the boxing fans, where they can get this magazine, Bill.
Well, first, before I get into that, let me say that credit really has to go to Mike Madden, right, for laying out the money and buying the place, and then preserving it and restoring it. Mike Madden, without Mike Madden, none of this is happening, and we're not talking about it, right? So that's number one. And also our mutual friends Mustafa Amin and Mick Stefanik and Jeff Julian. I know you know all these guys. They did a great job restoring that place, and they're up there all the time. And Mick Stefanik is the guy who gives visitor tours and is really great at doing that. And his knowledge about that camp is second to none. But at any rate, Ringside Seat magazine is a quarterly boxing magazine that we've been putting out since 2017. And you get it at Amazon or at ringsideseatmag.com. Again, ringsideseatmag.com. Here's the cover once more. Again, a Jeff Julian photo on the cover and fight posters inside, and Nigel Collins' great article about Fighters Heaven and the 40 years ago that he was there with Matthew Saad Muhammad, and we have book reviews in there. So we're proud of the magazine and proud of getting the opportunity to write about Fighters Heaven and work with the people who have kept it alive and restored it to its original pristine condition.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me on to talk about it.
Hey, man, that's what we do week in and week out for the last 25 years. We talk about people in boxing, fighters, people on the sideline, everything, or a kid just coming in the gym. We all the time say there ain't no big odds and little U's. Even the dishwasher's important. Nobody likes to eat out of dirty dish. That's what Muhammad Ali taught me when I was young. When he put us in a commercial called the Ali Gang, and the rest of history, the things that we have accomplished in the game. But bar none, that camp is a great tool to inspire people.
Sure.
But Bill, I heard you and I seen you post something up on Facebook about Muhammad Ali's manager, Herbert Muhammad, who I knew very well.
Yep.
Can you elaborate on that? What the post was all about?
Yeah, I took the opportunity in this issue of Ringside Seat magazine, and it was especially appropriate given that we're covering Muhammad Ali and his training camp and fight posters from the 1970s. It seemed appropriate to take the opportunity to discuss and ask the question why Herbert Muhammad is not in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And for those, for the uninitiated, Herbert Muhammad was Muhammad Ali's manager from the time when the original five business consortium from Louisville managed Ali and their contract expired. He managed them from that point, managed Ali, I should say, from that point to his entire career, and then a little shortly thereafter. So Ali, of course, is the one of the most really at the time was possibly the most famous person on the planet by the time the mid-'70s came around. He is one of the most popular athletes ever, and is certainly the most popular boxer who's ever lived and ever fought, right?
Yeah.
And so he had the same manager for a couple decades. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that Herbert Muhammad wouldn't be in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And before I go any further, I should say that the person who presented this idea to me is Mustafa Amin, who, of course, knew Ali very well and Matthew Saad Muhammad very well, and also knew Herbert Muhammad very well. I think I just assumed at some point that he was already in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. So that was incorrect, and nobody even talks about it, which seems so odd to me. But go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I think a lot of people, know, but the thing about it is to take Henry Haskop is a well-noted boxing historian, president of the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame.
Yep.
He sits on our show as one of the historians, and for weeks in and weeks out, we went over a lot of champions and managers and all of that. The International Boxing Hall of Fame did put a lot of pioneer fighters in the Hall of Fame. I guess the next thing that they're going to do is catch up with the managers of great fighters, such as Joe Lewis's managers, Roxborough and them.
Yep.
Who were bankers.
Sure.
Joe Louis has the longest reigning title defenses in boxing history.
Sure.
They're not in there, but definitely Herbert Muhammad deserves to be in there because in 1966, when the sponsor group, the 12 guys down there in Louisville, Kentucky, that signed Muhammad Ali, when he came out of the Olympics, when their contract expired, Herbert Muhammad with the Nation of Islam, who was Herbert Muhammad's father, is Elijah Muhammad.
Right.
And during that time, his son took over and signed Muhammad Ali, and through that relationship, they traveled the whole world.
Right.
Herbert and Muhammad and Muhammad Ali. Mm-hmm. They traveled the whole world, championing the cause of Islam when it wasn't popular, and spreading the word that the belief in the oneness of God, and how different people all over the world and the nooks and crannies all over the planet should look into that. This great religion called Islam, and hoping that they can find God. But from that, the great fights that Muhammad Ali had, you mentioned Joe Frazier earlier, Joe Frazier fight, but Herbert Muhammad was the one who, the $2.5 million that he got for Joe Frazier, to the $5.5 million that he got for over there in Zaire, was a commitment of Herbert Muhammad. Now, I asked some people that I know that were part of that, how did Herbert Muhammad negotiate? What was one of his styles? And one of his styles that Murad Muhammad told me, who was a great boxing promoter and also promoted Muhammad Ali, he told me one of Herbert Muhammad's greatest styles of negotiating was he would tell you how much they wanted, and then he say, well, give us, just say 5.5. He said, if you can find that, you got it, Judge. So that was one of his inimitable styles, and Don King made good on that, is because those fights that Don King had to go find that money, even though he had them sign the contracts for the money that Herbert Muhammad him said that they wanted. Right. And Don King went out and hustled it up and found it. There's a great saying that when Don King was in Zaire, Africa, with Mobutu, trying to get the money for the Thriller in Manila, the Rumble in the Jungle, Herbert Muhammad was with Muammar Gaddafi.
Ah.
And Muammar Gaddafi he put up the money for that fight to happen in Libya. However, something happened with the electricity in the country. There was a blackout. So they couldn't use the phone, Herbert and Muammar Gaddafi and that team, to transfer the money. To say, hey, we got it. In the meantime, Mobutu, the president of Zaire, had put up the money, and the rest is history from that. That's a little known fact, to talk about Herbert Muhammad. Right. But also Herbert Muhammad, he did win in 1974 from the Boxing Hall of Fame. He did get Manager of the Year in 1974. Okay. So what you're saying, Bill, and I concur with you. I'm not preaching to the gospel. I'm just concurring to what you're doing. Is that 1974, he was Manager of the Year by the Boxing Hall of Fame. So the internationals should just fit it all in and get it going, put those great managers in there. Muhammad Ali's manager and also Joe Louis's manager. I think it'd be a great thing if they do something like that, like they did with women's boxing. They felt the need. They put the female Ali, Jackie Taiwanda, and Lady Treemyard. They put them in, and I think they're on the right track when you start doing stuff, something like that. It spells out equality, and those are the things that Muhammad Ali fought his life for, was freedom, justice, and equality. And I'm glad to see you, Bill, have enough nerve and enough courage to stand up to say like that. It speaks of the character of you also. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So, Bill, where do you take all of this? What's some of your next projects before closing, man? Time goes fast when you're having fun.
It sure does.
Talking about boxing.
Yeah, it sure does. I don't know yet. I don't know what is next, but I'm a boxing lifer like you, Aaron, and no matter what happens in boxing, and no matter how disgusted we can get with it, and I do, and I'm sure you do also, at some of the things that happen in boxing, I'm a boxing lifer, so I'll be in it to some degree forever, or until I'm not here anymore. Just the same way you will be, I'm sure. We're boxing lifers, and but we're always working on something in boxing. So, but as to any specific projects, I can't speak to any right now.
Well, hey, look, man, we'll review boxing a little bit and see what your thoughts about this. Last Saturday, Shakur Stevenson, he won last Saturday, which was the last fight that he had with Top Rank. You know, how do you feel about Shakur Stevenson, and where do you think he goes from here?
He's a wonderful boxer, a really talented kid, really good fundamentals, and he's going to beat a lot of people. And you know this, part of a boxer's job, if he wants to be rich and famous, is to entertain when he's in the ring. And nobody really finds Shakur Stevenson's style entertaining, I think, at this point. And if anybody does, it's a very small percentage. I like boxers as much as anybody. And I mean, it's like scientific boxers. One of my favorite heavyweights during the 90s was Chris Bird. Loved watching that guy fight and the level of skill and talent that he put on display. But Shakur Stevenson's style is not one that's going to get him a lot of fans. So I recognize that he felt like Bob Arum lowballed him with a 5-fight, $15 million guarantee, and so that's why he's a free agent now. But there's just not a lot of I don't think there's a lot of money out there for Shakur Stevenson right now.
Shakur Stevenson big fights is with Davis, Tank Davis,
Gervonta, Tank Davis,
and so Haney. or he can go down with Rinchenko. I think those are fights that will propel him into greatness. You know, styles make fights, and
Sure.
to have someone in the dance, you need somebody in the dance in order to dance with you in order to
Sure.
make
That's
something
true.
exciting.
That's a good point.
You know, at times, you know, as great as Roy Jones was, at times they called him boring.
Sure.
Same way with Mayweather. At times they called him boring, not exciting,
Sure.
until he got somebody in front of him that wanted to dance the way he wanted to dance,
That's true.
and
That's
they
absolutely
make
true.
it exciting. But
Yep.
let's commend, you know, Eddie Hearns is going to be in town. Let's take it overseas a little bit and talk about Anthony Joshua and the bonus here, the boys. You know, Usyk releasing one of the heavyweight titles, the IBF championship. The boys were sitting there as the interim champion, and Anthony Joshua was number 2. And it looks like, man, this is going to be a huge fight for the heavyweight division.
Yeah, it sure is, and it's unfortunate that, well, it's good and bad news. Everybody knows Usyk is the heavyweight champion, okay? And well, I don't know your feelings about this, but I don't consider the winner of the Joshua Dubois fight a heavyweight champion. I consider this a wonderful fight that was born of the splintering of titles that is not necessary, right? Usyk is the heavyweight champion, but because the IBF has stripped him, we're getting a wonderful fight as a result. Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois is a very good fight. Dubois showed a lot in his last fight, and a lot of people were writing him off after his losses, but the guy's got a good chin. He can punch, and Anthony Joshua is a big puncher who has also shown late career resilience. And I got to hand it to Anthony Joshua. You know, 2 losses to Usyk, the loss to Andy Ruiz. I kind of thought he was done. I didn't think he was emotionally able at this point in his career to kind of turn things around, but he has. So him and Dubois is a very interesting fight.
Yeah, man.
Joshua, but it's a very good heavyweight fight.
Oh, absolutely. Boxing fans, it looks like that fight's going to take place September 24th. Anthony Joshua, 34 years old, and he has the chance to beat Tyson Fury's record in Wembley Stadium. Now, you're talking about over 100,000 people they're talking about, you know. That's they're looking at to fit in that arena to get that Wembley Stadium's record. And I'm going to tell you something, not brag much, but a fellow Pennsylvania who had the opportunity to train, Tim Witherspoon, when he fought Frank Bruno on Wembley Stadium, he had the record at one time.
Right?
Tim there defending that WBA stadium, 45,000 fans in Wembley Stadium, and Muhammad Ali was right there with us.
Nice.
Yeah. So I know that is a great record, 100-some thousand people, man, in Wembley Stadium, man. That fight's going to be dynamite. It's like you're saying, Bill. It's going to be a great matchup between two punchers. You know what I mean? It says whose chin will win. That's what we're going to look at that fight. Whose chin will win?
Exactly right. You know what? I'm glad you said that because you know. That's a really salient observation because I remember Gil Clancy saying to me once, in a fight between punchers, it's not who punches harder, it's who has the better chin that matters, which is kind of the reverse of what most people think. And that had never occurred to me, and this was many years ago, that had never occurred to me before Gil Clancy said it. So we should look at, when trying to handicap that fight between Joshua and Dubois, who has the better chin? But you know what? I don't know which guy has the better chin. Probably Dubois, but it's a great fight, and good for you for saying that. Again, not who punches harder, but you said the same thing that Clancy did. That in a fight like this, it's who has the better chin.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, later on after that, you have Usyk and Tyson Fury in a rematch fight. Tyson Fury has a record when he fought White with 94,000 fans over there, man. That's a lot of people, man. There's dots everywhere. You know, I was in Azteca Stadium down there in Mexico when Julio Cesar Chavez fought Greg Hogan, which is the record that Don King has for the most fans in a fight, which was 134 some thousand fans, I think it is. I may be wrong. Don't quote me on it, but it's around that figure. To hold the record for stadium attended in Azteca Stadium.
Sure.
Yeah, with if Anthony Joshua can beat Tyson Fury record with 100,000, man, hats off. And if you can get the win, hats off, because it's going to be a dynamite fight. It's going to be a bar burner. But hey, look, him and Usyk fight is what people want. I don't think at this point in Tyson Fury's career is that what makes Usyk so hard to beat. He's always in dynamite shape.
She sure is.
Yep. And in the old term in boxing is a good southpaw fighter is difficult to beat, and here's why. Southpaws are difficult fights anyway, but when you get a southpaw that can really fight, got a good chin, and can make adjustments as well as Usyk can. You got a tough fight, and I don't think that Tyson Fury can at this time in his career make the adjustment that he needs to make in order to beat Usyk. You know, Usyk beats guys going down the stretch, and that title, and it looks like the WBA or the WBO, one of them WBA, that they have an interim champion. That car been interim champion for a long time with Michael Hunter sitting there, who has fought Usyk before, and that was a dynamite fight. Michael Hunter had Usyk down, and going down the stretch like a lot of fighters that can great condition that Usyk has. He's just a workhorse. He outworks people going down the stretch. That's how he beat Michael Hunter. Will them two end up fighting for the WBA title and this great undisputed champion in the 4-belt era, the first one to do it, to have 4 titles. You know, I trained an undisputed 3-belt era champion called Mike Tyson. It's tough to hold on to them belts when you don't want to meet the organizational rule structure for title defenses. And so everybody's biting at the bit because the heavyweight championship, it's all about money. And if you don't want to follow the rules to the game, you'll get put in chain because they will strip it. And the next thing you know, someone else is fighting for the belt. But Usyk, what a great champion he is. And hats off to him to what he wants to do for his country over there. He's part of the war with the Klitschko brothers. They're in the military. They're standing up. They're fighting for the country. That's what makes this man so strong too, man. He's fighting for his people, man. You know, with all of this that's happening over there in the war, Usyk is standing up loud and clear, and even being undisputed champion to say, here, you take the belt, or I don't need that belt. I'm going to fight this guy anyway. And quite frankly, there's no one else out there that he needs to fight, is because Tyson Fury fought the man that beat the man that fought the man. Now Usyk's the man that's going to have to fight the men to be the man that he is. And right now, he's still an undisputed heavyweight champion in the 4-belt era, and to make history, the first person ever to do it, man. Hey, did you hear George Foreman's giving up his cars, some of his cars from his great collection?
Yeah, I saw that. He auctioned off a bunch of his cars. Yeah, good for him. He's the man.
Yeah. That's something to have that kind of collection. Well, let's look, since we have Boots Ennis fighting tonight down there at Wells Fargo. Let's look at Terrence Crawford, who's going to work August 3rd. Yeah,
Terrence is at the top of his game right now. since beating Spence, he's got, I think, the recognition that he's always wanted, right? But I'm not encouraged when I hear him say things like he's got no reason to fight Boots. That's at some point that's a good fight.
Oh, it's a dynamite fight.
Yeah, sure. So why wouldn't I get the reasoning that you'll hear older champions use. They'll say there's always somebody to fight. There's always some new kid coming up. You can't fight them all eventually, but you kind of can, right? Ali did, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So,
even when he was up in age, he was still taking on all comers for the title, for the championship.
Exactly right. So Terrence Crawford's a wonderful fighter, and he's enjoying the spoils of victory after his fight with Spence. But again, I'm not encouraged when I hear him say that he's got no reason to fight Boots Ennis. He wants to fight Canelo because he wants that big payday. But I don't really find that much appeal in that fight. I'd rather see him. And believe me, he doesn't care what I think. But I'd much rather see him stay at his weight and fight Boots Ennis. But we'll see what happens. But he's a wonderful fighter.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, fans, go down there tonight. Wells Fargo Arena down in Philadelphia, South Philly. And let me tell you, man, Boots Ennis is going to put on a heck of a show, man. He's right at home, and he's biting at the bit as one of all of those great Philadelphia fighters that we had the pleasure to talk about this morning, such as Matthew SAAD Muhammad, and a great promoter during that time that was doing a lot of fights in Philadelphia, Russell Phelps, who is a Hall of Famer. Yep. And to have Nigel Collins up there, a Hall of Fame writer, up there at the Fighter 7, man, this is a joy and it's a dream come true to sit here with you this morning, Bill.
Thank you.
Talk about your books and all of that, man. I want to thank you for coming on the World Boxing Review show. Do you want to say anything in closing?
Just that next time you're going to be up at Fighters Heaven, give me a call or send me an email or something. I'll meet you up there. We'll hang out. I love being up there. I was up there with Mustafa and Jeff Julian and Nick Stefanik when we were writing this article. So it's not that far from me, and it's not that far from you, I know. So next time you're in Florida now, so I guess it's far for you. But next time you're up here and want to check it out, let me know. Yeah, I come near all the time. Good. Because my family and all that is there and from there. So good. I come near. In August, I'll be up there the beginning part of August with the around the second or third, in between there. I'll be up there. Good.
And I'll be up to the camp. But man, good. Bill, what is indeed pleasure. And let me tell you what, there's power in the pen. And Bill, you keep putting that power you have to the pen. All your writings, it makes for a good read, a good write. You're a terrific writer, and that's in this era. There ain't enough of you, around that are doing. A lot of them write a lot of garbage, but you do your research, you do your studies, and that's what makes your writing such a terrific writing and a terrific read, man. And as a boxing person, a boxing student of the game, I just love reading stuff like that. It just, man, it fits in, and you put so much into reality. A lot of it, that stuff that you wrote about SAAD Muhammad, I witnessed and was around it, so I know it's real. And what you wrote about was real. And boy, could you describe it better, second to none, than anybody in your writing. So
thank you. Thank you very much, Aaron.
You're very welcome. But keep up the good work, man. And we'll bring you back another day, man, on the World Boxing Review. It's been a pleasure, man. We done talked over an hour and 8 minutes. We done talked over the time, but that's the way it goes when you're having fun. But that's what what makes the World Boxing Review what it is, man. We'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the World Boxing Review radio show. My name is Aaron Snowell. They call me the Hall of Fame Trainer of Champions, as we travel the world for past, present, and future stars. Thank you so much, Bill.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.